Yo, what is good guys, Super Kelly aka Rennie here, and Super People is officially back. Today we will be going over the patch notes for the early access as well as what else to expect for the month of October. I will be going over the changes for all the classes within Super People, and I will also go over what I believe will be the new class meta. Super People will also be doing their part to help celebrate Halloween with new map cosmetics and skins to go along with the game. Now let's get straight into it with the general patch notes. Now quick disclaimer, my voice doesn't normally sound like this. I was just yelling a lot yesterday at a football game. That's why it sounds like this. The overall damage upgrade for rifles will be reduced. The weapons will do about 10% less damage per upgrade. Damage increase per level has been reduced. The maximum damage level has also been changed from 25 to 27, so that it'll take a little longer. This is just the beginning for the changes towards a slower TTK, as a lot of people felt the other one was too short. Now let's start going over the class specific changes. Titan. The performance for Titan was lower than expected, so we will be getting a Titan buff. The barrier assault cooldown had its range and cooldown reduced. You can now detect enemies from significantly further with the Undertaker scan, and Bio Bulwark's HP has been increased and its cooldown has been reduced. The barrier assault cooldown is definitely a big deal. I could see why they decreased the range because it doesn't really need to go that far, so I could definitely see that being used more. Shotgun Master. Shotgun Master has sadly been nerfed. I just found out how OP it can be in the final beta, so sad to see it already get nerfed. The jump cooldown has been increased to 25 seconds. This will be a huge hit as the short timer is what made this class so OP, but 25 seconds is also not that bad. All the original health boosts you have gotten have all been decreased, and shotguns as a whole have been nerfed, so expect this class to take a big hit. Seeker. There was a huge nerf to Seeker with the heartbeat sensor. When someone is detected by a heartbeat, they will now be notified. This is a huge hit to the ability, but personally I like that so that people don't play like rats. The explosive damage reduction will now be decreased, so expect to take more damage to explosives obviously. And this is them aiming towards throwables being more useful, as they noticed that throwable explosives were barely being used, or when they were being used they weren't doing much damage. So we'll see how their attempt towards that plays out, but also the Molotov trap for Seeker already had its radius and max deployable number increased. Now for Sniper. Sniper has been buffed, rightfully so, as whenever you would hit somebody standing still with the ultimate ability, it would do barely anything to them. The damage for the steady shot ability has been increased so that now you can expect to maybe even get a one-shot kill, or just do significant damage to your opponent. The airstrike actually got nerfed, which I consider a big dub, because it was almost as useful as nuclear, which it should not be the case. Commando crawl is now called fast crawl, not a big deal. The booby trap radius and max deployable number have been increased like the Molotov as well. So overall, I'm glad that the actual sniping ability within Sniper is going to be more useful and that the airstrike has been nerfed. Gas Soldier. The overall goal with Gas Soldier was to increase his overall movement. Shield Booster will have a 10% increased movement speed, and there will be an overall buff to speed increase in the smoke screen. Not too much going on with Gas Soldier, this is purely movement related. Marine. For Marine, C4 damage had a significant increase and the class has been buffed to be more supportive. Revive and Restoration for allies has been increased from 20 to 70%. So that is a really big buff here, and I definitely want to see this character on my squad more. It'll be very interesting to see how this plays out, but 20 to 70% is such a big increase that this could be really overpowered. Teleporter. Teleporter had kind of a buff with the ultimate cooldown being lowered to 110 seconds, which is still very long but a move in the right direction. Tomahawks are now easier to hit with, but I still don't think Tomahawks will be used very often. Crawling speed as well as quick item use have also been lowered, so expect this class to work a little slower. SWAT. Now what I believe to be one of the worst classes in the final beta, of course, got a buff, thankfully. SWAT will now have increased movement speed and increasing grenades, and the ultimate as well got a buff with the casting speed being lowered and the cooldown being lowered to 80 seconds. Definitely nothing too crazy going on with SWAT, but at least they're giving it a buff. Firearms Expert. Now what I consider to be the worst class in the final beta, of course, had a very significant buff. I still don't think I'm going to be using it, but it has been buffed. The damage of the guns with mix and match has been increased. The ultimate ability will no longer slow down allies and will slow down enemies even more. Also, any allies within the ultimate ability will have their defense increased by 20% for 5 seconds. Now I personally don't like Firearms Expert too much, but what they did to the ultimate ability sounds like a very big deal. Allies having no restriction to their speed and the enemies being decreased even further makes it sound like this could do some serious damage. Nuclear. Nuclear has been buffed. The nuke will do double the damage with double the range. Now obviously I'm kidding, because Nuclear is one of the most overpowered classes, so it has been nerfed. Now the nuke cooldown was actually decreased, but the nuke max damage was actually lowered significantly from 180 to 140. Now although the maximum damage was lowered, the minimum damage was raised a bit, but I'm just glad that we can't get one tap late game anymore. Now although the maximum amount of damage was significantly lowered, the minimum amount was actually raised up. But personally, I'm just glad that I can't get one-tapped by nuclear anymore late game. On top of these changes, the RPG cooldown has been increased, so it'll be a lot harder to spam rockets, and also just like the nuke, the maximum amount of damage was also decreased, so it's harder to die to just one. Overall, I think these changes were pretty good, because I think nukes should mainly be served to weaken enemies and kind of serve as a scout so you can see how many enemies are in one location, not just instantly wipe out an entire team. It still is an OP class, but good changes. Driver. Probably one of the most controversial classes within the final beta, as everyone in the tournaments would abuse it and stay in their car until the final circle. This class has now been nerfed. Now the cooldown for the vehicle has been decreased, but the timer will not start until the truck is destroyed or until you haven't used the truck for a certain period of time. This is a really good change because people can't just spawn in another truck when you spend all your resources to destroy the first one. It's not too crazy of a nerf, but I definitely like the change. In summary, I like most of the changes. It's pretty obvious that they're trying to get to a longer time to kill with all the damage reductions and all that. Another huge focus on these patch notes was definitely the throwables. I expect a lot more people to be using those during the early access. I hope traps aren't insanely OP now, but I also can see why them being completely useless is also an issue. I still think nuclear will be the class meta, as well as shotgun master, depending on how actually bad the shotguns are. I'm assuming they're not going to be too terrible, but they might be. But what makes this class so good is the ultimate ability and the short cooldown, because it's very good for attacking and also escaping enemies. Now, in terms of being a breakout class that people will just start using like crazy, Firearms Expert definitely has potential with the ultimate. I still don't think it'll be that good, but I guess we'll see how that plays out. The one I expect to start being used the most in squads will be Marine. Marine supporting abilities are just insane, so expect them to be used a lot more. Now, for the driver issue, I kind of think driver will kind of be in the same spot, but in terms of solo driver, it'll be a little harder to use, but for squads, I think he's just as useful. Let me know if you think they got the changes right or what changes they still need to make. But an also really important note going into the early access is to make sure you subscribe, as it gives you a buff towards winning your games. So just go ahead and go down there and hit the subscribe button and increase your odds of winning instantly. And it's all for free, just take the free buff. Anyway, appreciate you guys for watching, hope you guys found this useful. Till next time, love you, see ya.